just 2 weeks after Charles Oliveira told the world he would not be ready to rematch Islam Makhachev at UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi, the UFC announces the rematch, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the City Light Project YouTube channel for this MMA news and reaction video. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get right into it. Well, a ton of news broke last night, ladies and gentlemen, and wow, this one being probably the most surprising. Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev 2 is slated to go down in Abu Dhabi. And again, just 2 weeks after Charles Oliveira told the world during International Fight Week that he would not be ready to fight Islam come October, that he was nursing an injury that he actually sustained before the Beneil Dariush fight, and he made that one look easy, ladies and gentlemen. Charles' recent run and domination over Beneil Dariush has been nothing but incredible. I mean, yes, he's had the hiccup over Islam Makhachev, who absolutely dominated him. But in a fight where everyone, myself included, was saying that Beneil Dariush, when he gets that title shot against Makhachev, I mean, he's going to make it look easier than everybody else. It was such a good matchup. And though it still is a good matchup, as we saw what Arman Tsarukyan was able to do to Islam Makhachev, dragging him into deep water, someone who's grappling defense and whose strength matches that of Islam Makhachev. Hell, Volkanovski, though he lost that close fight, was able to also drag Islam Makhachev into deep waters. Charles Oliveira, banged up, defeated Beneil Dariush. Not only defeated him, dominated him in the first round, making it look easy. Now, I know Charles Oliveira did not offer Islam Makhachev a difficult fight per se. That fight still ended in the second round. It wasn't as easy of a path to victory as what we just saw with Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush. I don't think Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira is a good or bad matchup for either of them. It's just a fight with two guys with different styles. Yes, a different base. However, their base is still in grappling. Very different styles of grappling, obviously. And it was so funny that back in the day was, you know, the Japanese shoot wrestling versus the Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Now today, it's like the evolved Japanese shoot wrestling in Dagestani Sambo. That is now the kryptonite for Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But is it the kryptonite for Brazilian jiu-jitsu, much like the Japanese shoot wrestlers? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. Now, that's not to suggest that Charles Oliveira is going to win this fight, and we'll get into that in a second here. He does have the tools to beat Islam because he's good everywhere. He is. He's good everywhere other than being chinny. And it's not like he's chinny in that it gets him knocked out. He's chinny in that he just gets knocked down every single fight, except for Beneil Dariush, of course. Furthermore, there's good tape now on Islam Makhachev, because the only other long tape that was on him was against Arman Tsarukyan, and both of those fighters, respectively, were early in their UFC run. The Volkanovski fight, you got 5 rounds of tape for Islam Makhachev, fighting a guy who, again, very different style than that of a Charles Oliveira, but a guy who pressured Islam Makhachev a lot like, you know, Charles Oliveira has been doing to his recent opponents. So now there's 2 fights to study. There's 8 rounds versus 3. And I do think that's going to help Charles Oliveira and his team. His team aren't just those savage, old school shoot boxers who are just going to spar and spar and spar and spar and spar and spar. No. Lima and the crew there, they're wizards. They're wizards. But Islam has his number, folks. Islam Makhachev has Charles Oliveira's number. The amount of hype for their last fight was incredible. The amount of hype going into this one is going to be insane, especially it coming out of left field. None of us thought this was going to happen. I thought earlier this week that Islam Makhachev was going to be just taken off that card, that they weren't going to be able to find a dance partner for him. And now we get the fight that we all wanted. But Islam's got his number, man. It was not a hard test for him last time. And not to make excuses for Dubronx. He kind of said it himself. I wasn't myself going into that one. I'm curious to see if he's himself going into this one, and if he can drag Makhachev back into the deep waters that only Arman Tsarukyan and Alexander Volkanovski were able to do respectively. Islam beat the pound-for-pound best fighter on the planet in Volkanovski. Beat. I'm gonna always say that Volk probably should have deserved that decision. It was close. Whatever. Regardless, that was not an easy victory for Islam Makhachev. And he's also beaten Charles Oliveira. His last 2 wins were against 2 of my favorite fighters and 2 of the best fighters in the world. But those were also the best 2 wins of his career, in my opinion. Because his path to the title was an easy one. Let's be perfectly honest. Let's not sugarcoat it. Now, is he deserving of that spot on that podium with that crown? Absolutely. He's incredible. He's incredible. He's good everywhere. He is great on the ground, and he is so strong. But he's human, and he slowed down against Volkanovski. He slowed down against Volkanovski late in that fight. I don't have an official prediction for this fight yet. I will make an official predictions video for that card when we get closer to it in the fall. But look, folks, I'm leaning towards Islam Makhachev. I'm obviously, for those who follow the channel and know me, I'm rooting for that of a Charles Oliveira. He's one of my favorite fighters. And I don't have many fighters who I'm like a huge fan of, who I let bias seep into me covering them a little bit. You know, one of those was Beneil Dariush. And that one was super hard for me to cover and even watch because I was rooting for both of them. And there's only other handful of fighters who I actually like am a fan of their personality, brand, athlete, fighting style, the whole 9 yards. So I'll just say it right now. Like, I am a fan of Charles Oliveira, but I'm leaning towards picking Islam Makhachev to win again, just because of how easy he made it look last time. And that Charles Oliveira was seemingly not even ready for this one. Look, folks, money talks. You gotta think that Dana and the UFC threw copious amounts of cash at Oliveira to take this fight, because he's not coming in at 100%. Will this rivalry, will this series against Islam Makhachev tarnish the legacy of Charles Oliveira if he can't beat him? It could. It's definitely going to be a black spot on it. If, for example, Oliveira was, as he said, not himself going into the first. If Oliveira is banged up going into the second, can we really blame him for those 2 losses? Look, the first one, I'm not going to make excuses for him. He lost that fight. He got pieced up. But this second one, if he goes in injured, that sucks. That we won't be able to see a 100% Oliveira back in there against Islam Makhachev. But he does have time. He does have time. 294 is a little ways away. It's home turf, kind of, in Abu Dhabi twice in a row for Islam Makhachev. So you have to think, and this is where, you know, the positivity comes out for all the Charles Oliveira fans. You have to think that if Oliveira beats Islam Makhachev, they will rematch again. There will be a rubber match. And for this one, it's probably going to be in Brazil. If Charles Oliveira wins this one, the first 2 fights were in Abu Dhabi. The first 2 fights were home field advantage, I guess you could say, for Islam Makhachev. You got to think that if Oliveira wins this one, wins the rematch, that the rubber match will be in Brazil, and that will be absolutely insane. That will be insane. Let me know your thoughts on this news in the comments below. Let me know who you're rooting for. Let me know who you think will win and why, and I'll catch you in the next one.